Hey guys, so welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be looking at also to another history topic in my second channel. We're going to be looking into the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution. So we're going to be so in this video I'm going to be looking over to like the Enlightenment over like many reasons such as empiricism, individual rights and freedoms, and and also about reasons and scientific revolutions, how they advance over technology, sciences, and the arts and science and all the cultures, and also through we're gonna be in this video also gonna covers political theories to give like as well as individual rights. So yeah, if we're gonna be covering all that in the video. So if you guys are excited, please be sure to like, subscribe, and don't forget to comment down below and turn on my bell notifications. That way you get notified by every video that I'll be posting in the channel. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, so let's go over to this video what is the Enlightenment and also about what is the scientific revolution. So first let's start with the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was an intellectual movement that took place primarily in the 18th century in Europe, where thinkers emphasized the use of reason, science, logic to understand the world and improve society, challenging the traditional religious and political authority by advocating for the ideas like liberty, progress, tolerance, and individual rights. It is also known as the Age of Reason here. And like also basically like others like liberated freedoms and tolerance and also improving the powers between like also with the monarchies between the nobles to improve the monarchy between men and king here to like balancing the powers here. And what is also the scientific revolution? It was also a period that changed scientific thought that occurred also in Europe during the 16th and the 17th centuries, where that marked the development of scientific method, which new discoveries in astronomy, physics, and biology, and the shift from relying on the ancient Greek philosophers to empirical observations and experimentation to the understand of the natural world is essentially laying down the foundation of modern science here. Well, the science like science, chemistry, and scientific and technology and technological advancements. All right, so in here in this one, we're going to be talking about some of the both 17th century English political theorists, philosophers such as Thomas Hobbes and John Locke here. So let's start with Thomas Hobbes, who is a 17th century English philosophers who is basically famous for the early era of the development what it became known as the social contract theory. If you guys know what that is, that's basically like in his book that he also wrote, the Leviathan, that basically that he told that why people should need to obey all about the government, and like even though there's imperfect kinds, that's some that they do not like here, and also like to basically obey the government or obey those rulers here, even though they're doing a good job here. That's part of his social contract theory. And Thomas Hobbes believed also in the over the term of like back in the Middle Ages, the divine rights of kings here. He believed that it was basically nonsense here, and which then he was also scared about the consequences of like the social contract theory, and he told also the people that if the ruler starts to become like being corrupt, acting like a tyrant, then and the people are slowing to dying or like trying to isolate, then they have the opportunity to chance and like basically overthrow their ruler and then like later establish the new government here. And his ideas of the social contract theory and the natural and immutable rights and the laws of nature have significant structure and dynamics over through modern government. And he made the book called the Leviathan, which was published in 1651, which was emphasized the necessity of the powerful government to establish and maintain the social order and also free the people from violence and from war, war here, and he also had like many dark to the to take people back in time in history, known as the state of nature, when there were humans, when there were hunter gatherers, and where they're hunting food and all. Thomas Hobbes had like a more pessimistic and darker view over through the state of nature here, because it was violent, brutal, and it was dangerous, and like he also described it as nasty, nasty, brutish, and short here, and that's why he also advocated that we need to establish over and through new governments here to have control of the people, because the state of nature is basically anarchy here, and to establish government laws and the social contract and the rights of all people here, and that's what he meant. Whereas, like, we have until then, like, he then like and with John Locke's philosophy, however, like he said that all persons are endowed of with the natural the rights of life, liberty, and property. That the rulers to fail to protect those rights would be removed by the people, and it would be forced by if necessary. If he argues that humans are born without innate knowledge or acquire all the ideas through sensory experience, his political theory was advocating for natural rights, laid much of the groundwork for the Enlightenment and the central contributions to development of liberalism. He's also influenced later also into Thomas Jefferson's over the Declaration of Independence during the American Revolutionary War going through the 18th century. So for John Locke, if you guys also didn't know, he basically also said in his book about religious toleration, which in 1667 when it was published, John Locke also argued that the government should basically not get involved into like many of their people's religious beliefs or really many of religious practices here, and to be basically that men should have a cozy life and about the men of soils here, and he also wrote his book about many of the true treatises of government here. That he also did not have like basically the dark, morbid views over the state of nature like Thomas Hobbes had, where he saw the state of nature as like quite not more peaceful and prosperity, and he did agree with Hobbes that there should be established more over governments over through the people here, and like basically they also promised like that said that if a ruler then becomes a tyrant or something, then they would overthrow the ruler and establish new government here, and basically for people also to not forget to maintain all their rights, so that way that a ruler should never take away too. And also he basically also like he made also his reforms also about like over his reforms on education, which he wrote a book on the reforms of the education back in 1794, where he basically said that like basically we need schools and to basically serve children to basically education to gain a lot more knowledge and stuff, and also like basically whereas, like, the man named Edward Clark had basically gone out to Jock to basically educate his son and heir, and, like, that he gave him all the subject of laws, and Locke had also basically had fascinating ideas of also the subject of Roman education. He argued, like, which I would disagree with, as also useless subjects like Latin, Greek, or the poetry and art, and that he thinks that we should basically get other subjects such as like science, mathematics, and also as well as psychology, that he also advocated for these other traits. And also like he basically also said that like some people he also had the belief of basically some kids that are some of our minds that are completely blank here, so which he would call it tabula rasa, as he called it here, and which to get his brains come through so the like many of the natural natures or the factors of some part of the new human brains, and how where they get their knowledge also for learning through many different subjects, as well as also he basically that there's also like basically that has people effects over many of the brains, and which he goes through the association of ideas, like for example, like if kids go through like to tell stories like about a foolish maiden such as goblins and like spirits that haunt their lives over their dreams, which they should not tell any haunted stories, as well as also like basically also that the kids should allowed to get education and through the schools and go through an economic and knowledgeable process here that he also advocated for to good for the establishment of his schools in the 17th century in England here. All right, so let's go to the next one. So this is this book of Thomas Hobbes that I wrote mention about, like his book called Leviathan, which is published back in 1651. That I already mentioned in the video. That basically why people should need to always obey through many rules from the government here, and even if the government is bad, like corrupt here, and that basically many people would then like starve to death, then they have the right to basically overthrow and then later establish the new government here. And see, here are all the different books that were made by both John Locke, such as Concerning Toleration, the essay of Concerning Human Understanding, and also about the reforms of education, both in the year 1794. That his reforms of education that I mentioned before earlier. And so here's Thomas Hobbes, like the English philosopher. He developed the social contract theory. In the earliest history, humans lived in a complete freedom in a state of nature, where that means there's no government and no superior power here. Where he had like, that's where I've explained where Thomas Hobbes had like the dark, morbid views over the state of nature, that this would lead to anarchy and eventually to a brutal war here, through violence. And he also said that what people could take by force was theirs, and there is no protective authority. And humans had overcome this unpleasant society by creating the social contract theory. And the state was created by the people and to protect the people through popular sovereignty here. That basically means like people that have like basically go through like basically people who are having the rights to basically vote and like through the elections and so and as well as protecting the people's rights. And he also basically believed that also the monarchy was the best form of a government that basically have much more power, whereas many people of the states do not here, and they. So, what is the purpose of government? And this is one of Thomas Hobbes' quotes here. The condition of man is a condition of war of everyone against everyone. That's by the dark of the 17th century by Thomas Hobbes. And the Hobbes and Locke is like, why do we need like basically government? So I think the reason like basically why we need government is basically to establish a government to have protect over the rights of many people, how we should govern them meant ourselves here, and like also establish many laws, businesses, and opportunities and jobs, as well as also like basically schools and education and film entertainment to basically give people natural lives and to provide also for protection as well as also security. And also through basically people to have rights of votes and like basically to have natural rights and that the many leaders should not like take away, that I mentioned before. And also about governing themselves and correct balances, like basically to prevent one government from being too powerful, establishing new laws and legislation and basically laws and reforms into the to the government. All right. And so this is another quote for John Locke that the state of nature has the law of the governed and is treated of everyone equally, being equal and independent throughout to harm the other in his health, and possession of John Locke. That basically the Locke's governments must protect all the natural rights, such as life, liberty, and property. Like, basically, he mentions also about that we should not, like, basically harm each other, that we should not basically, like, steal or anything, or hurt anybody, or steal anybody's property, or naturally any goods here. And, like, basically have the natural rights that should take away from the government, and the governments should be not to be corrupt or, like, basically enter into a dictatorship too here, that it should be electoral democratic and democracy under a presidency here. And so here it's the effect of the social contract theory. We have Thomas Hobbes, people would live in peace without rights, whereas John Locke says that natural rights will be enforced by a government created by with the consent, but with also with Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the who was the Genevan philosopher, the life will be in faith if follow the general will and set aside personal preferences. And so here, what is what the will to do with also with the Rousseau and the arguments with the minority and the rights of the rest of the public? I'll send you guys maybe the link of these videos in the description, as well as the two I did with Thomas Hobbes and John Locke over through the School of Life. I'll put these videos in the links in the description below if you want to check them out for yourselves here. All right, so we're going to talk about also what are the other like the philosophers. So we're going to talk about these 18th century philosophers. So let's start off with Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He was born in Geneva back in 1712, where his family had moved from Switzerland all the way to a part of France, where Jean-Jacques Rousseau had by the time he oversaw the old like basically bourgeois basically over in Paris, like the old luxurious life, and with basically relations with many of the people that basically would get out of fashion or like basically too much power, and which he described it also in French as amour propre here, basically the luxuries of the bourgeois of culture in France here. And he also said that on the social contract, which he questioned the purpose and place of government and its responsibility for citizens. Like similar to also Locke here, he did not also have dark morbid views like Thomas Hobbes had, where he's also see the state of nature also the same with Locke, similarly that is peaceful and basically where humans are decisive, where there were when there were hunter gatherers and such throughout the state of nature. And when Rousseau claimed that everyone was born free and equal, but societies imposed a sense of ownership over resources and divisions of labor, which is caused by conflict and social injustice. Whereas also like Rousseau basically claimed that like when children are born, like basically that they were like basically were born to be good, and he also said like basically that they needed to provide it also through education too. And like basically also he was also the guy who basically wanted to ban all like the luxury goods that were basically around during his time of the luxurious cultures around in France here. Whereas, like for Voltaire, he was also attacked by the Catholic Church and advocated for freedom of religion and freedom of expression and the separation of church and state. Here, Voltaire believed that all in the efficacy of reason, that he believed in the social progress that he achieved through the reason and with that no authority. He heavily influenced his freedoms of speech and religion in most Western democracies today, such as like the democracies like in the United States, that was influenced later over the works of the founding fathers in America, such as the creation of the Declaration of Independence and the creation of the Constitution after the American Revolutionary War. So, and whereas he also emphasized the intrinsic rights and freedoms of individuals, where we have whereas Denis Detroit here, Detroit explored all human knowledge and provided readers with a deep analysis of nearly all aspects of human experience, creating a new compendium of knowledge and presented the provocative new ideas in philosophy, the arts, and science. The laws have been based upon natural rights that would be made for all and for not for one here in 1755, where the co-founder of the chief editor and the contributor to the Encyclopedia. And finally, we have Montesquieu, who is best known for the spirits of laws in 1748, where he was one of the great works in the history of the political theory and the jurisprudence. He was also the guy who where the founders gave over to the Constitution about like basically over the separation of powers, like basically and checks and balances, like three branches of government, such as like later the legislature, legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch here. And he also said that basically, if one part of government is becoming like way too powerful, then they have the right to lower, basically to prevent them from like basically from any forms of government from being too powerful. And he also defended such powers, and he implemented the constitutions through the man out the world. He also said that liberty is the right to do everything that the laws permit, and he also believed that the natural rights informs the evolution of the law here. And so here is some of my Twitter peaks that I've actually made when I was in high school and around like my sophomore year, that we had to make also Twitter to Snapchat posts or their messages, tweaks here of many of the English political theorists, many philosopher and French philosophers, such as here Baron de Montesquieu, who he said, "Hey everyone, we do need a divine power to prevent the uncorrupt government, and that protected the people's rights, and is the spirit of law and the separation of power." And we have John Locke here, who he said about, "Hey everybody, read my book about the two treatises of government," which I mentioned earlier. Then we have Thomas Hobbes, who he said, "Hey everyone, I just want to write about the people giving natural rights and people escaping war and violence," and through his social contract theory and the book from the Leviathan that I also mentioned. And then Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he said, "Hey everyone, I want to say that everyone, even that we want to have democracy and do the topics that include children should be educated and have benefits spending time in nature." And Voltaire, he said he wrote in favor also for religious tolerance and freedom speech. And also, here are some of the videos that for you guys, you could check out these videos if you want to. The two are by the School of Life channel that you guys can check out in the links description. These are the two by other different YouTubers here, and if you guys want to check them out, learn about more political theories, literature, all about these English philosophers, I'll put the links in the description down below. But here, let's go to the next. Why is the Enlightenment important, you guys might ask? Because it was a provincial intellectual movement that emphasized reason, science, and individual rights, leading to the significance of the improvement of the society, including the development of modern democracy and through the promotions of religious tolerance and the foundation of the man that which democracies that were influenced all the way through both the American and the French revolutions. It led to many people think that their government is to consider ways in which it should be reformed. And why is also the scientific revolution is also important? Well, it is because that it has fundamentally changed that the way people understand the natural world by introduced scientific and method and leading to the advancements of in the fields like astronomy, physics, and biology that we mentioned, and laying down the groundworks of modern science and technology, and all while significantly impacting social thinking and challenging established beliefs about the universe and the creation of new knowledge systems, social heresies, and the new networks of thinkers. And so let's talk about like many of the scientists in the scientific revolution here. So let's first start up with Galileo Galilei, who was from February 15th, 1564 to June 18th, 1642, he was known for basically pioneered the experimental scientific method and was the first to use the refracting telescope to make the important astronomical discoveries. Galileo studied the speed and velocity, the gravity, and free fall of the principle of relatively inertia and projectile motion, and also worked and apply scientific technology and describing the properties of the pendulum and hydrostatic balances, or like basically through the planets, and then there's the Earth, Moon, the Sun, and the other planets like Jupiter, Moon, Pluto, and Mars. and we have Nicholas Copernicus, who is he was basically put forth into who is known for putting forth in the sun is at the near the center of the universe, and that the Earth is spinning in the axis once daily results in an annually around the sun shift the field of the astronomy and from a genocentric understanding of the universe centered around the Earth to be a heliocentric understanding centered around the sun. Whereas Johannes Kepler here, he was best known for his three laws of planetary motion. The first and the most famous law states that of the planets orbit eclipse through not in circles, as well as common belief at the time. Basically, like when the planets, like basically that was going around like many of the Earth and that was going around throughout space here. He also invented the proof the visual version of the refracting telescope, the Keplernian telescope, which became the foundation of the modern refracting telescope. And finally, we have Isaac Newton, who his formation of the three laws of motion of the basic principles of the modern physics, and he was also Isaac Newton was also known of the gravity, where he basically claimed that basically falling from the tree from like an apple that he discovered through the apple that was the gravity of the apple from the tree. Whereas he far from more just discovering of the laws of the gravity, Sir Isaac Newton also found the responsible for working out of many of the principles of the visible light and to the laws of motion and contributing to calculus. And Isaac Newton was also basically known for back in his time in England, where he basically founded over the foundation over like the hotels and culture, and also through like also the establishment known as basically later the Royal Society. Did they ever succeed, both the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution? Based on lasting impact of modern society, particularly the establishment of democratic values and emphasis of the reason and individual rights, the Enlightenment is generally considered a success, and its ideas inspired many political revolutions like in American and the French revolutions, and to continue to shape understanding of government and society today. The Enlightenment produced numerous books, essays, and inventions, scientific discoveries, laws, and wars and revolutions, and the American French revolutions, directly inspired by the Enlightenment ideas, were respectively marked at the peak of its influence and the beginning of its decline. And with the French, whereas like the scientific revolution was the scientific was is considered a success, and it's a fundamentally transformed of the way of knowledge acquired and led scientific advancements in various scientific fields, laying the foundation of modern science and significantly impacting society through new discoveries and technologies. Without it, the Industrial Revolution and many more advancements would not have been possible. The scientific revolution has led to the establishment of several also modern sciences that which I have mentioned.
Hi, I'm John Green, and this is.
And then I think that's pretty much about it. This is basically my whole documentary. I hope you guys basically still enjoyed it. It was still a lot of fun, and I hope you guys learned something new here. And I'll send these littles and articles, everything into the some of it in the description down below. And if you guys want to learn more all about it, including the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution, as well as learn about many of the more philosophers that I've talked about, then go check them out, and I'll put some links in the description down below where I found those and these articles where you can learn more about them. And but I hope you guys still enjoyed the video, and if you guys did, and if you want to see like more content about this, and like this, and but more history content, then what are you waiting for? Please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're new, don't forget to comment, and turn out that bell notifications that you get notified by every video that I'll be posting in the channel. And and I hope you guys basically learned something new, and I'll see you guys in my next video. So Mr. Airon's out. Peace.